So my posting's been weird. I went home, as you guys saw, I haven't been feeling great. A lot of stuff's been going on. Minor stint in the ER yesterday, nothing major. Everything's fine. I briefly mentioned it in a vlog and then we move on. I don't know, I've been weird. Some stuff has happened. There was an incident when I was out walking one day. So I've kind of just been shut in my house for the past few days and whatnot. But besides that, today I want to talk about my favorite books, but not in the normal way. So I'll link the video below. I can't think of the booktuber name or the actual video title because I literally turned it on and went, I have a great sub idea for this video, but I will link that in the description below. Basically, I wanted to look at my favorite books from the past 3 years and see how they line up with like the general rating consensus on Goodreads. Now here I encountered a few problems. Mainly, I realized that I did not read a single book in 2020 that was not for school. And I didn't want to include books I read for school. So for ones I would have read for school in 2020, we had The Handmaid's Tale and 3 Day Road, which I believe I've posted on Goodreads, did not add a date, did not rank or rate. I might have, I can double check, but. So 2020 was, no, it simply does not exist. And I didn't want to include 2019 because I haven't reread any of my favorites from 2019. And I know there's some questionable things on there. So I want to do some more rereads coming into this year, like the end of this year and beginning of next, but we'll see. So the other issue I found, as discussed in a recent video, all of my favorites for this year have pretty well been nonfiction. I didn't want to include those because the way people, I know like Books and Lala doesn't even rate her nonfiction that she reads, but the way people will interpret nonfiction often comes from their own personal experiences, like more so than fiction does. So I didn't want that to be swayed when looking at this sort of thing. So, you know, The Turnaway Study, White Feminism, and The Pain Gap, which I all read this year, which were all 5 stars, were all striked from the list. Additionally, one of my only other 5 stars for the year, Every Morning the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer, I think that's the title, by Frederick Bachman, was a reread that I read in 2018. I mean, still 5 stars, and I believe that's very highly rated, but because it's a reread, I didn't even look at it. So, for this year, we have Animal Farm, which I just recently read, and Fangs. Animal Farm is a classic George Orwell. It's occurred to me that I may not be pronouncing his name right, but it'd be weird if on this channel I pronounce someone's name right, so we're gonna live with it. And then Fangs, I can't think of I want to say Saunders, but it's not that. Sanderson, also not that. Fangs. It's a little graphic novel that I absolutely loved. It's about a vampire and a werewolf falling in love. It's just really cute. It's adorable and I loved it. So with the other thing is that I didn't want to include anything that had less than 10K reviews or ratings. I didn't look at reviews, I looked at ratings. But Animal Farm has 73K and Fangs has 23K. Animal Farm is a classic, so it occurs to me that some people may have read it for school, maybe not in high school, but for university, and if they rated it that way, they may have differing opinions than if they had read it for amusement like I did. However, it still lands at a 3.97, and I give it a 5 star, which really isn't that far off. Like once you get past the 3.5 threshold on Goodreads, it's like generally kind of, or in my view, it's generally kind of acknowledged that it's a good book. However, we all know my experiences with Colleen Hoover, which you will see tomorrow in the first whatever-thon vlog I'm posting. So maybe it's not a good book, but like I think generally enough, especially when you have as many ratings as Animal Farm does. Fangs additionally has 4.28 stars, and it has 23K ratings. So honestly, I'm kind of lining up with the general consensus here. Now, moving into 2021, I read Aristotle and Dante Dive into the Waters of the World, which is the Aristotle and Dante sequel, which is like a cult classic. So it's going to be high, and it has a 4.16 with 38,000 reviews. Additionally, we have the first Heartstopper graphic novel, which has 4.55 ratings. This one, because of the new series that just came out, which I loved, right? But seeing a lot more people interested in it, and I'm not sure if this series is swaying them. And I mean, like, I'm not one of those people where you have to read the book first. But, you know, there could be some sway there based on the series versus the book, although the series is basically identical to the book. I think they did a very, very good job on the series. But that does have 322,000 ratings, and it's extremely high, especially with that many ratings. Then we have Red, White, and Royal Blue, which has a 4.18 with 527,000 ratings, which is insane for Goodreads. Like, just to have that high of a rating with that many, you know, people weighing in. And then lastly, these are all books I gave 5 stars. I'm pretty sure I said that, but yes. And then for the last one that's considered is Best Laid Plans by Terry Fallis, which is a Canadian political comedy book, which I read last year for a personal study. And that has 3.9 stars on 10K reviews, so it just got in. Then we also have literally an all-time favorite for me, Everything Beautiful Is Not Ruined, has 4.2 stars. However, it only has 3,000 ratings, so I striked that from the consideration of the thing we're doing here. So with all that said, my most controversial opinion is Best Laid Plans, which is a Canadian political comedy book. It's not everyone's thing. Like, I think there are very few books that have like particular audiences, but let me tell you, Best Laid Plans is one of them. I mean, I don't identify with the political view that's even taken in the book. However, because I have knowledge of Canadian politics, I was able to relate and understand most of the jokes, and I understood the system that was, you know, being examined in the book. And it was actually, as I said, I did it for a personal study in my Canadian literature class. I did count books from that study because I wasn't made to read those for school. I read them and used them in school, if that makes sense. There's a difference. Like, I chose them for the project. I wasn't told to read them. But this was considered for a class read, and I was actually the only one who like really wanted to read it. And I was the only one who read it. And when I was doing my project, and like after I was talking to the class and my teacher, I was like, it's actually really good we didn't read this, because, you know, not to be like, oh, you guys wouldn't understand, but you guys would not have understood what was going on. Like, the jokes wouldn't have been funny. So I think there is a very particular audience to that, and I think I was, particularly last year, like in a very much a place, you know, discovering my, you know, I already had an entrance, and I had already taken my university level course for Canadian government political science at the university that I go to now. I think it was like perfect discovery moment for me, one of those. And I think that like a lot of people wouldn't, like, it's very much a political comedy, not a comedy with politics. So I think that might be where some of the difference is in my rating versus the general consensus on Goodreads. So then secondly, we have Animal Farm. And as I said, I think some universities do have their students read this, and depending on what class you're in and whatnot. And also, Animal Farm is a little weird. Like, it's clearly like, it's a metaphor, but it's like, you don't really have to, like, obviously you should think while you're reading it, but like, you know, the pigs take extra goods and they all call each other comrades. Like, we know what he's talking about. And I think if you're looking for more, And I mean, I liked it as a person with a political science background because it did not take this whole communism bad, capitalism good viewpoint that, as I discussed in a wrap up or something, whenever the last time I talked about Animal Farm was, which is a very Americanized kind of Cold War sentiment. And I enjoyed the fact that it was not like, you know, it wasn't even, well, they all suck, so we might as well keep this one. Like, it was very much not, I don't know, I didn't find it too strictly ideological from an author viewpoint. I think it very much examined more corruption of power than any particular system, and it used both to reflect and play on that. But if you were expecting like a very in tune, you know, kind of deep metaphor that you really had to think about, I can see why you maybe wouldn't have enjoyed it as much. It's very much one of those books where the way you think on it is what makes it, and whatnot. So I think that could be where that disconnect is. Also, I think reading for school, like in university, it's very different. However, like high school reading is wild, and I want to do another video on that. But I want to reread the books I was made to read in school, although although the ones from 9th grade, and I'm not doing the Shakespeare again. I refuse. So, but the ones from 9th grade, I similarly hated, like with a passion. So we'll get to that maybe. But as for the ones that like really align with, Heartstopper and Fangs, I think are very easy to love. They're both just like really fluffy, light romance stuff, and they're just generally cute. So really, Sarah Scribbles. It's the same girl who does Sarah Scribbles who wrote Fangs. Read my brain, okay? And I mean, as I said, Aristotle and Dante is like a cult classic. I mean, people who read Aristotle and Dante when it first came out in 2012 waited a decade basically to get the sequel. And I mean, there is some controversy around the author and Aristotle and Dante, and some content within it, and it was addressed in the second book. However, I'm not part of the community that can accept any apology on that. And I do recognize the inherent disrespect that comes within the LGBTQIA2+ community when you say, okay, but this is a great representation of, you know, a gay relationship versus what it does to represent other groups or to diminish other groups. And I think in Pride Month, where we are now, I think that's a very important subject to be reflecting on when looking at LGBTQIA2+ literature in different art forms. However, as a cis, white, but queer woman, but who is also in a straight presenting relationship at the moment, you know, not to diminish myself, but I also don't think I'm the person who can accept or deny what a book did. And I had, before the sequel came out, I had some meaningful conversations with some of my friends who are a part of the community who can be like, hey, you know, this isn't good. And I mean, we can all call out bad things. However, you know, it's not our apology to accept type of thing. So that's what I'll say on that. And I mean, it's also why I've been really hesitant to talk about a lot of my favorite books, because those are my 2 favorite books of all time. I do want to have a conversation with communities who are affected by the way particularly trans people are represented in the Aristotle and Dante books, and how that has affected them. But yeah, just things to think about during Pride Month. Moving on, Red, White, and Royal Blue is also similarly controversial. It's written by a non-binary person, and they, you know, wouldn't have the same experience as such a book, although the book's about falling in love with a gay English prince. I don't think most people would have that experience. However, I do think there's, you know, and Own Voices is a bit not in the mainstream thing anymore. And I think there's a lot of conversation about representation for the sake of representation. This is not where I meant for this video to go, but I don't know. It's, as I said, I feel I used to be an activist for LGBTQIA2+ rights. However, I've since stepped away for multiple reasons. A, for threats to my safety in my hometown, and whatnot. But also because, like, I have been in straight presenting relationships for the past 3 years. I'm a white cis woman. Like, I don't know, it's this weird area of like self-erasure and also trying to acknowledge privilege. And by no way am I saying by acknowledging privilege you have to like erase that part of your identity. Absolutely not. But personally, I have really struggled in striking a balance between, you know, speaking up and, you know, activism and different things, because like I also, like, I'm not an ally, like I'm a part of this community, and when things happen, like I want to be able to speak out on them, but at the same time, like, it's a weird place to be. And I mean, one of my favorite things on TikTok right now is like, Happy Pride Month to the gays, and it's like bisexual and queer women currently in straight presenting relationships, and I was like, I feel represented. But you know, once again, like, I'm not a gay man. Like, I'm not a person who's able to say, okay, this is bad because X, Y, and Z, or this is okay because X, Y, and Z. And yeah, it's just, I'm rambling, but I did not expect this to come to this, but it's just an odd space to occupy in my own brain at the moment, and especially during Pride Month. And yeah, like, by no means am I saying like, oh, bisexual, pansexual, queer, white women are so like so dismissed and whatever. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is, like, personally, I have had issues like between what is giving space and what is diminishing myself, like personally, not within a movement as a whole, not within the community as a whole, but that is where I have found myself, especially because when I started my LGBTQIA2+ activism, I was in a queer relationship, and since then I have not been in queer relationships since I was like 16. So it's a weird space to occupy, but I mean, like, it's weird. And like, when I reflect upon, you know, are my favorite books problematic, the answer is yeah. Most likely. You know, Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue is written by Mackenzie Lee, who is not a gay man from the 1700s. But they're not a gay man. And there's also this question of like, okay, well, what really is Own Voices, and like what like is a community, like, can a woman not write from a male perspective? Can a man not write from a female perspective, even if you look at like a heteronormative way to look at that? Like, it's a lot of, I mean, I haven't even thought that much about it until I started talking about books on my channel and whatnot, and I have to be like, oh my gosh, is this wrong? Like, and I mean, particularly with Aristotle and Dante, like, I do genuinely love those books, but I do genuinely believe that maybe we should not be talking about them in the way that we used to, you know, like back in 2015 when they were really popular, or when it was really popular, because there was only one book. And I would be interested in, like, I should look into more genderqueer creators and their opinions. And I mean, that's probably something I should have done before this video, but I'm kind of rambling to myself and like having self-realization stuff going on. But I'm definitely think I'm gonna look into genderqueer reactions to the sequel, because I just want to know kind of what the thing that's going on is. And I kind of owe that, you know, to monetarily support an author. Yeah. So basically, are all of Emma's favorite books problematic? Most likely. However, a lot of my favorite books are kind of generally like consensus as like at least a 3.9, which is really weird. Yeah, it's just really weird that they're all rated so highly. I mean, I would say that like I kind of got into Red, White, and Royal Blue before the hype. Definitely got into Heartstopper, not before the hype, but like before the series came out. I mean, Aristotle and Dante kind of at the time that it was hyped up. Animal Farm is Animal Farm. Fangs, I haven't seen talked about a ton, but I mean, it's mildly popular. And then Best Laid Plans is just a little Canadian rep on the list. One book that I know is, or that I found not to be problematic, that is my favorite, is Everything Beautiful Is Not Ruined, and we did not talk about because the ratings are fairly low, or the rating is high, but the number of ratings are low. But highly recommend. I had other videos on that, so if that's the takeaway, is read Animal Farm and read Everything Beautiful Is Not Ruined, and Fangs. Fangs is good too. I don't know what that was. Just be happy I'm filming again, okay? Anyway, if you enjoyed this, I mean, you can subscribe or do whatever YouTube does, and if you're interested in seeing more stuff from me, you can check out my first poetry collection that's linked down below. My author page is there as well, so you can see what I'm up to, although I post more on here than on that page. But you know what? Just do what you want to do. Anyway, have a great day. Bye.